circle G plus 2x. So, you can see here na yung ordering, hindi mo pwedeng balik ka rin lang ng basta-basta. Ayun. Actually, yun na yun eh. Ganyan siya pwede mong isolve. Just give an example na nag-fail yung assumption na commutativity. So, yung 47, so if f and g are two functions such that f circle g is equal to x and g circle of f is equal to x, then f and g are inverses of each other. So, in exercises 46 through 50, show that f and g are inverses of each other. Okay. So, yung 47 ay 1 over x plus 1. And so f is 1 over x plus 1, g is 1 minus x over x. And g of x is equal to 1 minus x over x. Okay, so here, yung pwede mong gawin, you can calculate f circle g and g circle f.
Hmm.
simplify mo. Hindi pa tapos yung F circle G eh. So ano ba yan? Okay. And then G circle F. So you're dividing a fraction, di ba? So sulat mo siya sa product. So the quantity 1 minus 1 over x plus 1 times para malinis. So the quantity 1 minus 1 over x plus 1 multiplied to, teka, parenthesis. Or kung walang parenthesis, dapat x plus 1 over 1.
Okay. So, kung ganito pala.
Teka, maglagay ka ng parenthesis. Ang itsura niyan ay 1 minus 1 over x plus 1 times x lang. Okay. Ngayon, bago tayo pumunta dun sa next problem, ganito. What if ang problem ay paano maghanap ng inverse? So, may technique ba for doing that? Teka, na-encounter mo na ba yan before? Yung finding the inverse?
Hindi po.
O sige. So, bago tayo magsimula doon, first, gusto kong i-graph mo, use Desmos to graph f and g. So, y equals 1 over x plus 1 at g of x is 1 minus x over x. Tapos, pa-share ng graph. So, yung first function is uh, 1 over x plus 1. Y equals 1 over x plus 1. Gawin mo yung y. Y equals 1 over x plus 1. Tapos, yung next, i-graph mo yung other function. Y equals 1 minus x over x. So magparenthesis ka. Or yan. Tapos, graph mo yung y equals x. Parang nabawasan yung features, no? Kaya mo bang gawin na broken line yung graph nung y equals x? Okay. Ngayon, tingnan mo yung tingnan mo yung symmetry nung nung graphs with respect to the to the y equals x line. Pansin mo, mirror images sila. Mirror images sila. You see? So, so reflection sila ng isa't isa along y equals x. Tingnan mo. O sige. Tingnan pa natin isa pang yung isa pang function o isang pair of function inverses. So, yung so graph mo yung so iwan mo yung y equals x. Graph mo yung y equals tangent x. So yung first graph, gawin mong tangent x. At yung second graph ay tangent inverse of x. So palitan mo yung y equals 1 over x plus 1 ng tangent x. At saka yung 1 minus x over x by tangent inverse.
Mm-hmm.
Kasi ang titingnan natin yung mirror property along y equals x. So, gawin mo yung y equal, so palitan mo yan ng tangent x. Yung unang graph, yan iwan mo siya. Yung y equals x is, so yung first graph, palitan mo ng tangent x. Instead of, so tangent of x. Tapos, yung second ay tangent inverse. Or, sorry, baka hindi niya kilala yan eh. Okay, pwede. Kilala niya yung notation na tangent inverse. Ngayon, ang problema natin sa tangent, wala siyang matinong inverse. Kasi, hindi siya invertible kasi, ang mangyayari dito, kailangan mo i-restrict yung domain. Kasi, para magkaroon ng inverse, kailangan yung x sa y equals tangent x, i-restrict mo between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. So, lagyan mo ng restriction. So, curly bracket for tangent x. So, open the curly bracket and then minus pi over 2 less than equal to x less than equal to pi over 2. Yan. Tingnan mo yung symmetry ng graph. Mirror images sila with respect to the line y equals x. Tapos, yung inverse, for a function to have an inverse, dapat it's either purely increasing lang siya. Kung continuous siya, dapat purely increasing or purely decreasing. Kasi kailangan na reversible yung process eh. For example, tingnan mo yung next example dito, yung y equals, yung number 48. Tingnan mo yung graph mo yung y equals x square. So graph y equals x square and square root of x. So x square lang. And then square root of x. Okay. Ngayon, ang problem, yung x square, wala siyang inverse kapag for all reals ang domain. Kasi may dalawang possible values ng y. So, hindi unique yung... So, for each value of y, may dalawang possible values of x. So for one value of y, for example, when x squared is equal to 4, para magkaroon ng inverse, kailangan ibibigay sa'yo either 2 or negative 2. So, lagyan mo ng restriction. X squared is greater than or equal to 0. And x is greater than or equal to 0. Ayan. So pag ganyan, well-defined yung inverse. Kasi for each y, isa lang yung x. And for each x, isa lang yung y. Tapos may symmetry siya. Okay. Pakita ko yung ano. So pakita ko yung... So yung next. So dito kasi, yung pinapagawang skill ay evaluate mo yung F circle G at saka yung G circle F. Pero yung later parts kasi ng book, kailangan mo maghanap ng inverse function. So hindi lang test kung inverses sila. So pakita ko ngayon yung technique for getting inverse functions. So share ko yung book. Share ko yung notepad ko. Okay, so for example, let's look at yung number 47. Yung y equals 1, f of x is equal to 1 over x plus 1. Tapos let's say gusto natin hanapin yung inverse niya. Diba? Ang sagot, dapat, that's going to be 1 minus x over x. So, to get the inverse, yung pwede natin gawin na, okay, let's start with the f, which is y equals 1 over x plus 1. To get the inverse, ang gawin natin, lahat ng y magiging x, lahat ng x magiging y. Kita ba yung sinusulat ko? Hello?
Kita mo?
Kita. Okay, so if we do this substitution, ang magiging itsura ito, x is equal to 1 over y plus 1. Ngayon, let's solve for y. Minus 1. And then, pag ginumbine natin into a single fraction, 1 minus x over x, which is kung ano yung binigay dito. O sige. Next, yung y equals x squared. Ano inverse function? The inverse function, lahat ng y gawin nating x, lahat ng x gawin nating y. So, we get x equals y squared, and then y is equal to, kailangan nating mag-decide alin yung kapares dapat or ano yung inverse. Is it positive square root of x, or is it going to be negative square root of x? Okay, so ito. So if f of x is equal to x squared and g of x is equal to square root of x, may restriction lang tayo na x is greater than or equal to 0, gagana. Ngayon, paano kung, so ito yung ito yung inverse functions kapag may restriction na ganyan. Ngayon, tingnan natin, what if ang restriction natin on y equals x square ay x is less than or equal to 0. So, pag f of x is, pag yung function natin na f of x defined for x less than or equal to 0, yung appropriate na inverse is square root of x. Tapos, kailangan yung sagot natin negative. So, magkaka-minus sign yan. And pag ginraph mo yan, makikita mo na may symmetry pa rin yung dalawang graphs about y equals x. Okay, something more complicated. Paano kung hyperbolic sign? Paano natin kukunin yung inverse? So, x equals, hyperbolic sign is, so magiging hyperbolic sign of y. Tapos ano ba yung hyperbolic sign of y? Ang hyperbolic sign is defined as e to the y minus e to the minus y over 2. Kaya kita ba?
Kita mo?
Sige. So, I'm going to multiply both sides by 2x. So, gagamitin natin transformation na y goes to x gets replaced by y. So, we get this. And then we're going to solve for y. So, from here, magmumultiply ako ng 2x ng e to the y. And then, e to the y square minus 2x e to the y minus 1 is equal to 0. Okay, how do we solve for y? Kung ganyan yung equation natin.
Parang you will treat ey as a variable.
Okay, so ano yung e to the y?
Kasi kumbaga, let's say z po siya. So, parang quadratic formula po yun.
Okay, so therefore, e to the y is?
E to the y is... Kailangan mo po ng quadratic formula, hindi.
Hindi kaya, pwede kang mag-quadratic formula na dito. Diretso na.
Negative, ano ba? Negative. So, 2x plus minus square root of 4x squared. Wait. 4 is
B squared minus 4ac, di ba?
squared. B squared
Minus,
ano po, minus 4ac. Minus 4, 1, ano ba yun? Negative 1. So, over 2a. So, 2. Ilan mo?
Okay, or, so simplify natin. Plus or minus, may common factor ng 4, so may iwan lang dito, x square, sa loob, x square plus 1. Kaya, i-rewrite ko lang. Tapos e to the y. And then, finally, to get y,
Y is equal to ln of all of that.
Okay, so ln of x plus or minus the square root of x squared plus 1. Tapos yung ano niya, may signs kasi eh. So kailangan mo mag-decide. Kasi tingnan mo yung graph ng ano. Ano ba graph ng hyperbolic sign? It looks like this. So yung inverse, kailangan, so ang inverse natin, kailangan, well, mag-exist. Ngayon, ang e to the y is ito, di ba? So if x is negative, yung, so if x is less than 0, ano yung appropriate na sign? Actually, no. Sorry. Ano yung appropriate na sign? So let's check. Kapag plus, di ba, positive yung magiging laman. So kung positive yan, if x is greater than 0, tapos plus yung sign na ginamit natin, we're going to get a positive number inside, and the ln makes sense. Pag negative, hindi tayo makakuha ng ln. Magkakaroon tayo ng imaginary. So, kailangan plus yan. If x is less than 0, tapos gusto nating ma-define yung inverse, okay, negative, pag negative, hindi pa rin pwede, so, positive lang talaga. Kasi para mag-exist yung ln. So, ito yung magiging ano. So, yung final answer dito ay tapos ang restriction natin sa yung kinuha nating inverse. So, when x is less than 0, okay. Ayun. So, both will be this. Tapos, yung ano, yung hyperbolic sign. So, plus lagi. Yung pipiliin natin ng inverse. Okay, so, just to check, no? Let's graph y equals hyperbolic sign. At saka yung ito. Check natin kung may symmetry nga talaga. So, x plus square root of x squared minus 1. Tapos, hyperbolic sign. Tapos, pa-share ng screen. So, graph both. Teka, screenshot ko lang to para makuha mo rin. So, graph both. So, let's just check. So, hyperbolic sign yung second. So, may restriction ka na. So, hyperbolic sign of x, and then x is greater than or equal to 0 para... Ay, sorry. Hyperbolic cosine pala yung ganun. Tama. So, kahit na walang restriction, tama pala. Kasi monotonic increasing eh. Tapos, Okay, ngayon graph mo naman yung y equals ln of the quantity x plus square root of x squared minus 1. Sorry, iba yung iniisip ko kanina. Cosh pala yun. So, dapat so ln of x plus square root of x squared plus 1. Okay. So, pansin mo, no? Mirror images sila ng isa't isa. So, x squared plus 1, yan. Diba? So, mirror images silang dalawa with respect to y equals x. Yung cosh, actually, pwede mong gawin in a similar way. Na para mahanap yung inverse function, teka, so simulan natin yung setup, tapos gusto kong gawin mo. So, share ko din yung screen ko. May mga ano yan eh. Yung hyperbolics kasi madi-define mo in terms of E. So, it's possible to to express the inverses in terms of ln. So, let's start with y equals cosh. So, this can be written as e to the x plus e to the minus x over 2. So, gusto nating hanapin yung inverse function. Yung cosh, ang graph niya ganito. So, hindi siya defined. So, para magkaroon ng inverse, kailangan pumili tayo ng isang branch para single-valued lang siya. So, for convenience, we'll choose x is greater than or equal to 0. So, yan yung graph ng cosh, kalahati lang para well-defined yung inverse. So, if we use the rule, replace x by y and y by x, e to the y plus e to the minus y over 2 is equal to x. And then solve for y. So, pwedeng pakigawa, tapos patingin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, screenshot ko, tapos send ko sa sa messenger. Tapos, yun. Kung maputol, magre-rejoin na lang ako. Kasi 3 minutes na lang eh. And then total, since may inverses na tayo, pag-usapan na rin natin yung derivative of an inverse. Yeah, sorry. Ba't naulit to? Kosh dapat. Oh, yeah. Na-resend ko na. So, y equals cosh x or y equals e to the x plus e to the minus x over 2. So, yung inverse mo ko natin pag ginawa natin yung switching substitution. Okay.
Mhm.
Kaya pwede pa i-work out mo naman yung algebra to get to e to the y. Or e to the 2y. Kasi yun yung kailangan natin, di ba? Actually, yun yung pwede mong gawin dyan. Multiply by, gawin mo siya step by step. Wait, but e to the x.
Hindi, niloko na yan.
Okay. And then set up a quadratic equation for e to the 2y. Or set up the quadratic equation for e to the y. Okay. So, from there, ano yung e to the y? So, b squared minus 4ac. Submit. Okay. Gawin na natin to. Or simplifying, that's going to be x plus or minus. So may common factor ng 4 sa loob, so you can pull it out. Teka, common factor yung 4, di ba? So dapat 4 times x squared minus 1 yan. Okay. Ngayon, pwedeng i-plot mo yung x plus square root of x squared minus 1 at yung x minus square root of x squared minus 1. Gusto ko lang makita kung laging positive ba yan or nagne-negative. Kasi kailangan natin e to the y positive yan, di ba? So, paki-share ng plot x plus square root of x squared minus 1 at x minus square root of x squared minus 1 just to check kung if there's already a way to eliminate kung alin sa dalawa. The square root of square minus 1. Tsaka minus. Okay. So, para ma-check natin kung alin dyan, i-graph mo yung... So, ang y will be either ln of x plus... It's either... So, y equals ln of x plus or minus square root of x squared minus 1. And then we'll graph and compare the graph with Kosh para makita kung reasonable ba, kung alin yung mas reasonable. Or kung ano yung magiging ano, kung ano ba silbi ng plus and minus niyan. Okay, so, ayun, that's it. Nag-graph mo na ba? So, yung y equals ln of that.
Hindi mo po nakashare.
So, pa-share.
Nakashare screen ako po. Hindi ba po?
Hindi pa. Ang nakalagay lang, ang nakashare ngayon yung external eh. So, change Windows ka.
I think. Ayun, naka-poster pala yun. Yun mo.
So, okay, ngayon tingnan natin yung ano, yung LN nung dalawang yan. So, LN of x plus at saka LN of yan. Okay, pansin mo, branches siya ng hindi, ayokong sabihin yung ano eh, kasi may ano yan eh. Pero mapapansin mo, may symmetry yung dalawa, di ba? So, ngayon, tingnan mo yung graph ng y equals cos x. So, graph y equals cos x. Gawa kang dalawang graphs. Y equals cos x for x greater than 0 and y equals cos x for x less than 0 or less than or equal to 0. So, on the same axis, on the same ano, sa Desmos pa rin. So, y equals cos x for x greater than or equal to 0 at saka separate graph, y equals cos x for x less than or equal to 0.
So, pag ano naman.
So, cos x muna.
Okay.
Diba? So, tas x is greater, gawin mo na x for restricted na x greater than or equal to 0. So, curly brackets, x greater than or equal to 0. Kasi, yung cos hindi invertible kapag buong domain. Kasi, for each y, dalawa yung x. Yung inverse will only assign 1x. So, maglagay mo tayong restriction for for x greater than or equal to 0. And then you have to decide, alin sa dalawa yung inverse ng cos in that domain. Lagyan mo na restriction. So, curly brackets, x is greater than or equal to 0. Tapos, next line, cos x, pero this time x is less than or equal to 0.
Ayun.
Okay. Ngayon, tingnan mo, ano yung gusto kong makita, ano yung ano, for x, yung cos x for x greater than or equal to 0, alin yung inverse? So yung, sige, graph mo yung y equals x. Di ba may rule na dapat mirror images of each other? Yung inverse along y equals x.
Dapat po.
So graph mo yung y equals x.
Equals x.
Okay, tapos i-hide mo muna yung cos x less than or equal to 0. So, ano yung mirror image niya? Is it yung purple function or yung black function? So, kasi dapat yung inverses must be reflections of each other. along the y equals x-axis. So, pag tingnan natin, reflected on the green line, alin yung reflection ng red graph? Yung purple o yung black?
Ito pong blue. Purple pala.
Okay, so i-hide mo muna yung ln of x minus. So, dito, yung cos x at saka ln of x plus square root of x squared minus 1, inverse function pair sila. The other inverse function pair is yung pag minus at saka x less than or equal to 0 na cos. Anyway, so we'll examine yung mga inverse functions in more detail. Kasi actually yung functions pa lang, di ba? Gusto ko na para hindi mo wala yung skills natin for differentiation. Skip muna natin yung limits. We'll go to inverse functions sa chapter 5. So, ito kasi i-introduce ko yung paano maghanap ng inverse function. Pero, we'll read together yung book. So, nasa ba yung
Ano pong book to? Yung ano po?
TC7?
TC7 pa rin po.
Oo. Yan yung yan yung may print copy tayo eh.
Opo.
So, the inverse of a function. So, punta ka sa page 424. Okay, tapos nun, share ko yung screen ko. Tapos, para habang titingnan mo yung book, i-work out ko rin yung example. Okay, so yung first example dito, y equals x plus 4. Ginawa natin yung So, ginawa na natin yung kasi ito, inuulit niya lang yung idea na f of g of x. So, yung first page, inuulit niya yung idea na ang inverse functions will satisfy f circle g is equal to g circle f, which is equal to x. So, let's look at the definition first. So, definition of a one-to-one function. Kasi yung definition ng inverse depends on one-to-one. So, a function is said to be one-to-one. Yeah, type na natin. So, a function is said to be 1 to 1 if every number in its range so corresponds to exactly one value in the domain. Exactly one number in the domain. So, yeah. If x, so ang ano niyan, yung equation form, the function f is going to be 1 to 1 if x1 is not equal to x2, then yung function values niya hindi dapat maging identical. So, Example, first, let's give an example. Yung function na y equals x squared. If we graph this, di ba, ganit, quadratic yan eh. Yung domain ng, so if we are given the function f of x equals x squared for all reals, so if the domain is all reals, may R1 na lang. Ang problema niya, for each, di ba, let's say, tingnan natin to ano. Let's use red. So, pag tingnan natin yung graph, for a single value in the range, let's say ito yung y. So, pareho ng value ng y, pero hindi sila pareho ng value of x. So, this one will satisfy f of x1 is equal to f of x2, but x1 is not equal to x2. So, hindi satisfied yung dapat for each value of y, there's only one value of x. So, in this case, the function defined by f of x equals x squared, with the domain being x is an element of the reals, this is not one-to-one. Ngayon, paano kapag ganito? F of x equals x squared, pero may restriction tayo sa domain. 0 to infinity lang. So if we graph the function, etong half lang yung mag-graph. And then, as we can see here, for each value of y, isa lang yung magiging value ng x. So, example to ng 1-to-1. Okay, gawa tayo isang mas weird na function na 1-to-1. So, ito, kung walang butas yung function, di ba? So, it's possible to make weirder functions na 1-to-1. Ito, purely increasing. So, let's say we define the function with this graph. Pag ganito, tapos pag ganyan, and then may butas dito, tapos pag ganon. Ganito lang, yan. Kaya, i-move nga natin itong graph. So, linear functions na medyo weird yung behavior kasi hindi siya purely increasing. Pero, pag tingnan natin, if we test, for each value of y, is lang yung magiging corresponding value of x. Dito, this value of y will give us only this value of x. And so on. So, it's possible for this to be 1-to-1, pero hindi siya purely increasing or purely decreasing. So, this is still 1-to-1. Kasi yung test, check mo lahat ng y values. May dalawang points ka ba sa function na tatamaan? So, example, yung quadratic kanina, yung y equals x squared, kaya alam natin na hindi siya 1-to-1 kasi yung test ay draw a line na y equals sa constant. Dapat, pag 1-to-1, isa lang yung dapat na tamaan mo na point sa graph. Hindi pwedeng more than 1. So, another example, yung sine of x. If we graph this, ganito, di ba? Tapos umuulit. Hindi ko natutuloy, no? Pero meron doon sa kabila. If we choose a value of y in the range, Ang problema natin, ang daming intersections. Hindi unique yung x for that value of y. Meron tayo yung, actually for the whole sine function, infinite. So ito yung x is an element of the reals. Pagka yung sine function natin, dinefine natin this way, x is between minus pi over 2 to pi over 2. So pag ginraph natin, ganito. Diba? So something like this. So this is minus pi over 2. Ito yung pi over 2. So ito yung domain. If we use the y equals a constant test, ito, unique yung value ng x for each y. Pag nandito, ito yung mapupuntahan na value. So, sine of x within this restricted domain is 1 to 1. Okay. So, yung ang tawag nga pa, so dito, okay, may name si Lighthold for this test. It's the horizontal line test. Hindi ko naalala yung name eh. Basta alam ko lang, dapat pag nag-drawing ako ng y equals constant, isa lang yung intersection. Okay, so so dito, yung example 1. So for example 1, may mga ano eh, pinapatest yung 4x minus 3, f of x equals x plus 1 to the 4th, f of x equals x, and f of x equals 3x plus 4 over x minus 2. So, ito obvious, yung mga obvious na ayun na, sige. So, by looking at these, so graph each of these, and then by looking at the graph, decide kung one-to-one ba yung mga functions na yan or hindi. So, pwedeng graph using Desmos and then check. So ito yung example 1 to. This is on page 425. So pakigraph sa Desmos. Tapos tingnan natin kung one-to-one ba siya or hindi. Okay, so pwede pa share ng screen, tapos patingin ng graphs ng mga functions na yan. And then tell me as you go through each function kung is it one-to-one or not.
For x minus 3.
Split screen ko lang to.
Yes. Tapos,
Patingin ng pa-share ng screen tapos sabihin mo sa akin kung ano yung as you go through each of the graphs. So yung 4x minus 3, is it 1 to 1?
abo.
Okay. Yung x plus 1 to the 4th, patingin.
No. Kasi clearly po
No. May mga ano, di ba? The horizontal, pag nag-horizontal line,
siyempre po not.
not. Okay. And then, yung last one, yung 3x plus 4 over x minus 2.
1 to 1.
1 to 1. May asymptote siya at so ano yung mga asymptotes niyan? So vertical asymptote is at x equals 2. Ano naman yung horizontal asymptote?
Vertical asymptote when x equals to horizontal asymptote nasa when x
When
equals
x goes to infinity.
three po yung 3 po yung horizontal.
Okay, so mukhang approaching 3. Okay. So pakita ko lang paano hanapin 'yan. Yung algebraic method. So share ko din yung screen. So just to check, for example, so horizontal asymptote ng So the test is we have to find anong behavior niyan as x approaches infinity. So yung test, what's the limit as x approaches plus infinity of 3x plus 4 over x minus 2? Ngayon, the way this works, pag tinry mo lang mag-substitute, the numerator goes to infinity. The denominator goes to infinity. So wala pa, so ang tawag dyan, indeterminate form. So hindi natin makita, hindi siya obvious kung ano yung kung ano yung magiging limit. So you have to rearrange this para obvious kung ano yung behavior as x approaches infinity. So the way to do that is divide out, so factor out x. So magkakaroon tayo ng 3 plus 4 over x. Sa denominator, magkakaroon tayo ng x tapos 1 minus 2 over x. Ngayon, if we're getting the behavior as x approaches infinity, yung x over x, we can cancel this out. At ang makukuha natin, limit as x approaches infinity of 3 plus 4 over x divided by 1 minus 2 over x. So, para makita natin behavior, ano ba nangyayari sa 4 over x as x approaches infinity? So, ano yung itsura ng graph niyan? Diba? Pag ganon. So, what's the limit as x approaches infinity of 4 over x? So, what does this tend to as x goes to infinity? So, 4 divided by a number, and then see what happens. Pag pinalaki mo ng pinalaki yung divisor, ano yung pinupuntahan na number niyan?
I think dapat mo magiging kasi over something. So, pag lumalaki na lumalaki, ano ba? 0.
0. Tapos ganun din yung limit as x approaches infinity of 2 over x. So 0 din yan. So using that, yung behavior ng quotient, ganito. So the quotient behaves like, so ito goes to 0, ito goes to 0, tapos may iwan 3 over 1 or 3 lang. Which agrees with yung nakita nating behavior from the graph. Okay na?
Okay na po.
Okay, so let's continue with, medyo side note lang to. We'll go into more details sa mga ganito pag nag-limits tayo, nag-full-blown treatment tayo ng limits. So, ang goal lang natin kasi dito ay, okay, so we know the horizontal line test, so we can tell if a function is one-to-one. Ngayon, may theorem, so hindi, ito, so yung theorem na babanggitin ni Lighthold ay ganito. If a function, so let me type it in. If a continuous function, so continuous meaning yung graph no breaks, walang putol yung graph. If a continuous function is monotonic, so ang monotonic, ang ibig sabihin yan, purely increasing or purely decreasing, then so monotonic on the interval, on an interval. So lagyan natin ng qualification. On an interval, if the domain is an interval, then the function is one-to-one in that interval. So, yung example dito, yung sine of x. Yung kanina. Sine of x within the interval minus pi over 2 to pi over 2. If you look at the graph, purely increasing siya. So ito, definitely, so one-to-one siya. Yung tangent, actually similar yung behavior niyan eh. Yung minus pi over 2 to pi over 2. Yung graph niyan, di ba, ganito? So may asymptotes, tapos goes to infinity, magzi-0, and then goes to minus infinity. Yung cosine, hindi gagana dyan. Gagana lang yung cosine kapag if we graph from 0 to pi. So if we want cosine to be monotonic, kailangan i-restrict natin yung domain to 0 to pi. Or any period na na periodic naman yan eh. So pag shift this by pi or a multiple of pi, that's also going to be a region in which cosine is also one-to-one. So pag may restriction on the domain, it's possible for some functions to become one-to-one. Pag walang restriction, okay, pwedeng wala talaga. Okay, so let's look at the next thing. So yung example 2. Yung f of x is equal to 2x plus 3 over x minus 1. So, ang kailangan natin i-check ay, is this monotone? Ang tanong ay, prove analytically that the function is 1 to 1. In the interval on each so minus infinity to sabi dito minus infinity to 1 and 1 to infinity. So hindi included yung 1. Okay. So tingnan natin yung example 2. So balik lang tayo sa example 2 ulit. So share ko yung screen ko. So, ang ginagawa natin ngayon ay we're reading the book together hanggang sa part na pwede kang magsimula ng exercises.
Ako.
Kasi without, medyo mahirap yung tumalon tayo dun sa exercises without reading this. So, ano to eh, so ika-cut natin into pieces yung section na to so that once we finish reading a short enough, something na short enough, may magagawa ka na sa exercises. And then, pag itutuloy mo yung reading on your own, alam mo yung system, which is read enough to be able to do the exercises. And then, pag umabot ka sa part na stuck ka na uli, then continue reading uli. So dito, kaya siya mas complicated lang kasi yung proof ay kailangan natin i-prove na monotonic or increasing. How do you prove? So how do you prove na increasing yung function or decreasing yung function from minus infinity to 1? What do we need to do? So ito, yung first case, case 1, the interval is minus infinity to 1. So how do we show that the function is monotonic or purely increasing or purely decreasing? Okay, what do we know from derivatives?
Okay. So, kung derivatives possible. Positive. Positive.
So ang derivative could be, we have to show na ang derivative either always positive or always negative. So in this interval, ang derivative ay low D high. It's going to be, okay, hindi ko na gagawin yung derivative. Tingnan lang natin yung sagot. So it's going to come out as negative 5 over x minus 1 square. And this, kahit anong value, is always negative. Kasi yung denominator is always positive, so always negative. So the function is purely decreasing. Ngayon, paki-graph yung f of x equals 2x plus 3 over x minus 1. So graph this function.
2x plus
Tapos
3.
patingin. So gamitin mo yung Desmos, share your screen.
X minus 1.
Okay, so makikita niyo from the graph na pag ni-restrict natin yung domain, for example, negative infinity to 1, yung left-hand side, that's going to be always decreasing. If we restrict the domain to greater than 1, all decreasing din yung function. So in fact, from the graph, we can tell also na hindi na kahit na yung union will also be 1-to-1. Pero kasi pinapaprove lang pag itong domain lang, is it 1-to-1? Yes. Pag yung second domain, yung 1 to infinity, is it also going to be 1-to-1? Yes. So from the graph, kita natin using the horizontal test. Analytically, kasi makikita natin the derivative within each interval is always negative. Okay, so I think sapat na to for us to do some of the exercises. So let's go to the end of the section. So yung illustration 3, babalikan natin yan after. So do exercises. So from here, that's already enough for you to be able to do 5 exercises in 5.1, 1, 3, and 5. So pakigawa ng number 1.
Alam mong page siya? Mga 420,
37.
37.
Yung hindi ko alam yung PDF page, pero yung sa yung book page is 437.
So, mga 449.
5.2, ayan. So 5.1 lang tayo. So go back. Kasi 5.3 na yan So section 5.1. Further back, 5.1. Okay, so number 1. So ang pinapagawa lang dito, sketch the graph of the function and then say kung 1-to-1 or not. Domain is all yields for which the function will exist. Kasi may may mga functions na pag ni-restrict mo yung domain, 1-to-1 na siya. So wala muna tayong restriction. So yung letter A, is it 1-to-1?
Letter A, yes, dapat.
Tapos yung letter B?
No.
Okay. Yung letter C?
Yes.
Okay. Ngayon, punta tayo sa number 3.
Yes.
Okay, so letter A, yes. Where
B.
it's defined. Tapos
B.
yung B?
Should it be yes? O dapat. Isa lang siyang point wait,
Ano,
no. Yes. Vertical line. Hindi, no. Vertical line
para
pala.
siyang hyperbole siya, di ba?
Abo.
Tapos nun, walang value ng pag nag-horizontal line test tayo, isa lang yung tatamaan na point on the graph eh. Hindi, tingnan mo yung graph ng nung 2 over x plus 3. Para lang, just to be sure.
2 over x plus 3. So, yung, saan na yung yun.
Okay. So, kita naman, no? Horizontal line test, isa lang yung intersection. So, 1 to 1. Okay, yung next item, yung letter C, yung absolute value of x minus 2. So, is h of x 1 to 1?
Hindi, 1 to 1, tapos ano yung 1 to 1. Tapos ano niya,
Yung,
okay. So,
hindi,
ito,
yung h of x, wait, yung h of x equals absolute value of x minus 2. 1 to 1 or not?
no. Pag-absolute value po.
Okay. Ngayon, is there a restriction on, pwede mo bang i-restrict yung domain para maging 1 to 1 yan?
Yes. Either less than or equal to
Pwede
0.
So, pa-share nung external para makita ko kung ano yung possible subdomain, possible domains para maging 1 to 1 yan. So, pag all reals, not 1 to 1. Teka, pag ginraph mo yan sa, tingnan mo, graph mo yung absolute value of x minus 2 for x greater than or equal to 0. Tingnan mo kung anong mangyayari. So, pwedeng use Desmos and graph. So,
Hindi pala siya gagana. What happened?
so abs x minus 2. So, ano
Ah,
yung down,
okay. So, dapat pag greater than or ano po?
so greater than or equal to. So, in what interval, what are the two largest intervals in which 1 to 1 yan? So, first interval is from -infinity to Teka. So, ano yung sagot mo?
X na po. X is greater than or equal to 2.
So, yung isang domain ay x is greater than or equal to 2. Tapos yung other domain ay x is less than or equal to 2. Okay. So, let's go to the next. So, tapos na tayo sa number 3. So, let's go to number 5. Ngayon, dito, may in-specify na domains. So, are these functions, so by graphing, are these functions one-to-one or not? So, yung first function is 2 sine x between minus pi over 2 and
Tayo po ba po? Patay.
number 5, 5a. So, show the graph.
Tayo po.
So, kailangan mo ilagay yung restriction. Kasi may restriction na eh. So, and then,
What?
so minus pi over 2, and then less than equal to, and then less than or equal to pi over 2.
It looks like 1-to-1 naman po siya. Yes.
Okay. So, yes. Kung cosine of x within the same interval, 2 cosine x.
Cosine. No, kasi dito na po siya parang ganito na po.
Hindi, paki-graph para makita lang. 2 cosine x.
Ayun.
So, definitely hindi siya 1-to-1, di ba? Okay, yung for ano to? Number 5 is secant x from 0 to pi over 2.
Hindi rin natabo.
Hindi, pakita mo yung graph.
Where is it? Secant.
So 0 to pi over 2, and then pi to 3 pi over 2. Tapos, graph mo sa Desmos. Horizontal line test pa rin yan eh. And then show me the graph.
Oh, no.
Hindi, kaya kailangan lagyan mo kaya may domain yan eh. So, secant of x between 0 and pi over 2.
Meron ba pong union dito sa Desmos or
Hindi,
kailangan ko
gawa ka ng separate na graphs. Tapos may kita naman natin, tapos treat natin yung dalawang graphs na yun as 1. So, x is between 0 and pi over 2. So, less than equal to x. And then less than or equal, less than pi over 2 lang. Close bracket. Tapos nun yung next line, secant x ulit, pero this time pi to 3 pi over 2.
Pi lang po.
uh,
Ito po yung ano.
included yung, binabasa ko pa? Included yung pi. So less than or equal to dapat yan. Tapos, hindi included yung 3 pi over 2. Okay. So, based on the graph, is the function 1 to 1? So, anong sinasabi ng horizontal line test?
Obviously, nothing is wrong with the vertical. Wala rin naman pong horizontal. I think maybe
So, is the function 1 to 1?
1 to 1 naman po siya.
Okay. So, 1 to 1 siya. Kasi yung horizontal lines will only intersect the function at one point. Okay. So, ngayon, tingnan natin yung number 6. Letter A. F of x is 1 minus cosine x between 0 and pi.
Ito mo tangent.
At nagawa natin yan eh, di ba? So, yung number 6, f of x equals
1 minus cosine
1
x.
cosine. Yeah. Tapos ang domain 0 to pi.
Or ma-out of phase yata siya nun. 1 o minus. 0.
Less than equal, so less than or equal to x, and then less than equal to pi.
Definitely 1 to 1 po siya.
Okay, 1 to 1. Yung letter B. Tapos, tangent. Okay, and then yung restriction.
Is the restriction? Uh-huh.
Domain.
Zero. Zero not included. What's going on? Mm-hmm. Where is it?
Hindi, tingnan mo yung interval na sinetup mo. Di ba dapat 0 yan? Okay?
What one?
Cotangent of x over 2, no? 0, hindi, 2 pi. Yun yung, tingnan mo yung restriction.
Still 1 to 1 ba?
Okay, still 1 to 1. Okay, yung last natin ay cosecant of x. Tapos nun, tingnan mo yung domain na binigay. Zero to pi over 2. Tapos yung isa ay pi to 3 pi over 2. So, pakigraph sa Desmos yung 6C.
CSC. Di ba? So, dapat, parang ganun din po siya, parang second, parsecond. So, dapat, ano ba to? Ready ko lang muna konti. 0 to 1/2. Parang I think this is also 1 to 1. 0 to 1/2 pi. Ganun. So, wait. No. Kasi second pa yung sa una eh. So, it's clearly not.
Hindi, lagyan mo ng restrictions.
Hmm. Forgot the restrictions. 0 pi over pi. 1/2 pi.
Okay, tapos yung isa naman, yung continuation ng graph, cosecant of x, from pi to 3 pi over 2 naman. Teka, cosecant of x tapos So graph mo yung cosecant of x ulit, and this time from pi to 3 pi over 2. Kasi kailangan natin yung other half ng function.
Tapos yung isa naman is pi to pi 3 half pi.
Pi to 3 pi over 2.
Pi it's apparently in ano pa rin po siya.
Okay, so ano yan? 1-to-1 or not?
1-to-1 po.
1-to-1. Okay, so itutuloy natin to next Thursday. Ngayon, kung gusto mong mag-advance dito, ang pwede mong gawin, tuloy mo lang basahin yung kasi di ba ito pare, how can we tell kung 1-to-1 or not? So, yung definition of the inverse, tapos a few examples, and then you can attempt yung mga kasunod na problems dito sa section 5.1. And then pakita mo sa akin next time. Okay? So, sa Sunday, physics naman yung gagawin natin. So at least yung progress natin so far, we've done 1, 3, 5, and 6. So for next meeting, for next Thursday, tuloy natin yan. So 7 onwards. Okay, so we'll stop here. I'll see you again on Sunday. Bye-bye.
Opo. Sige po.